Hello everyone, and welcome back to Hack and Craft, where we turn everyday troubles into creative opportunities. Today, I was about to drill into a piece of wood to kick off a brand new project. But wait, why isn't the drill working? It might be dealing with some sort of issue. After all, machines can be a bit moody sometimes, right? They run into problems more often than we'd like to admit. Now the question is, what could be causing it this time? Let's take a closer look and try to figure out together, shall we? Oh no, it turns out the plug is broken. With a wire snap like this, how could the drill possibly work, right? There's just no way electricity can flow through a broken wire. But no worries at all. This is the perfect chance for us to learn how to fix a broken power plug in the easiest way possible. So let's turn broken into brand new right here, right now. First, I'm going to coil up the power cord neatly. After that, I'll use a zip tie to secure the coil wire and keep everything nice and tidy. I'm going to use 2 small zip ties to secure everything tightly in place. Because let's be honest, if things aren't neat and tidy, it can get really annoying while you're trying to work, right? So let's make sure it's all snug and organized before we move on. Now, at the damaged spot, I'm going to take a pair of scissors and carefully cut it open. Now I'm going to use a marker to mark this part. I'll mark all the sides of it as well. Marking is actually a very important step, my friends. We simply can't expect ourselves to remember every single little point that needs fixing. So the best approach is to mark them clearly. And honestly, this takes almost no effort at all, but it will save us a ton of confusion later on. Alright, now I'm going to use a knife to remove the outer rubber layer. Just cut around it like this. Make sure to cut evenly on all sides, folks. And please be extremely careful when handling a knife. It might look simple, but it's actually very dangerous if you're not paying full attention. Take your time and stay safe. Then I'll use pliers to pull it out. And that's it. But it looks like that first cut wasn't quite right. I actually need to cut a bit deeper down here. This part is thicker and tougher, so it's a bit more challenging to slice through. You'll need to apply a bit more force, but always remember, safety first, my friends. Keep your fingers out of the way and take it slow. Looks like the cut isn't deep enough yet. Let's trim it a bit more. Alright, that should do it. Now let's peel off the plastic cover. Let's try to pull out slowly and gently, alright? It does feel a bit tight, doesn't it? Looks like using just our hands won't do the trick this time. We might need to grab a tool to help ease it out. Something like a pair of pliers should work nicely. Don't forget to use pliers. It'll make things much easier. It does feel a bit tight, doesn't it? Let's give it one more good try and see what happens. There's still a small bit of rubber that hasn't been cut all the way through. Let me slice that off real quick. All done. I've managed to separate it. Can you see the wires inside clearly now? They're fully exposed and ready for the next step. Now I'm going to take care of this part. What I'll do is remove the inner core and keep only the outer casing, alright? I'll carefully cut 2 lines down the middle using a knife. Then I'll use pliers to peel open. Now I'm going to separate the inner wires. Make sure to use a pair of needle nose pliers for this step. They'll make it much easier to work with those small, tight spots. All done. Now I have an empty rubber casing. We'll be needing this part later on, so keep it handy. Now, moving on to the plug. As you can see, there's 3 small electrical wires, each with a different color. I'm going to cut off the green wire. All right, now let's move on to the brown wire. I'm going to trim it a little shorter to make it easier to work with. Cutting it just right helps ensure a neat connection and keeps everything tidy. All done. Now at the end of each wire, I'm going to carefully strip off the plastic insulation to expose the copper wire inside. This step is really important because it lets us make a solid electrical connection later on. Be gentle and take your time to avoid damaging the copper strands. Precision here will pay off. All done. Now, let's move on to the drill's power cord. I'll carefully use a knife to strip off the outer rubber insulation. After that, I'll use pliers to pull out the green wire inside and cut it off. This is important because the green wire is usually the ground wire, and in this case, we won't need it for our repair. Taking these steps carefully helps ensure everything is safe and neat. All right, now I'm going to cut off this black rubber insulation completely, leaving just the 2 wires inside, the blue one and the brown one. This way, we have only the essential wires we need for the repair, making the whole setup cleaner and easier to work with. All right, now that's done. I'm going to use these 2 wires to connect with the 2 wires from the plug. But first, I need to carefully strip off the rubber insulation on both ends to expose the copper wires inside. This step is really important to ensure a good electrical connection. I will twist the copper wires together tightly now. Twisting helps make a stronger and more secure connection, which is really important for safety and performance. Let me do that carefully to make sure it's neat and solid. All right, here I have prepared a small rubber tube like this. And now I'm going to cut it in half. This little rubber piece will come in handy soon. So cutting it carefully is important to keep everything neat and ready for the next step. Now, I'm going to thread these 2 small rubber tubes onto the 2 thin electrical wires. This step helps protect the wires and keep everything insulated nicely. Make sure to slide them all the way in so they fit snugly on the wires. Next, we'll need to use a soldering iron to help us out. I'm going to apply a little bit of soldering flux onto the tip of the soldering iron. This will make the solder flow better and help create a strong, clean connection. All right, now it's time to start soldering. I'm going to melt a bit of solder onto the copper wire, letting it flow smoothly to create a solid and reliable connection. Now, moving on to this pair of pliers, I'm going to wrap a rubber band tightly around the handles. This way, I've just created a big clamp, a handy DIY tool right at our fingertips. Now, I'm going to use this newly made clamp to firmly hold the plug in place. This will keep it steady while we work on it. I will solder the tin so that it melts into the copper wires of the plug. This solder will act as an adhesive to firmly connect the plug to the power cable of the drill. Alright, now I'm going to solder the electrical wire to the plug. I'll heat it up so that the solder I applied earlier melts and flows nicely. It will dry quickly and securely bond the copper wire from the plug to the copper wire of the electrical cable. And that's it. The electrical wires are now firmly connected to the plug. Next, I'll slide the 2 rubber sleeves we prepared earlier over the exposed copper wires. Oh, this rubber sleeve looks a bit tight. No worries. I'll adjust it carefully to make sure it fits just right without damaging anything. It's important to have a snug but comfortable fit to protect the wires properly. All done. Now I'm going to slide the rubber sleeve over the exposed copper wire. Just like this. And now comes the fun part. Let's heat up a little. I'm going to use a flame to gently warm the rubber. As the heat hits it, the rubber will shrink and wrap tightly around the wire. This way, the outer layer will be firmly secured to the inner copper core. Pretty neat, right? All done. Just like that. Nice and secure. But to make it even more reliable, I'm going to wrap an extra layer of electrical tape over it. Let's go ahead and wrap it around a few times, back and forth. This added layer not only reinforces a connection, but also provides extra insulation and safety. Can't be too careful when working with electricity, right? Alright, that should be more than enough tape. We're all set now. This connection is now solid, well insulated, and ready to get back to work. Feels good to fix something yourself, doesn't it? Do you remember that rubber casing we made at the beginning of the video? Well, now's the perfect time to put to use. I'm going to slide it over this newly repaired section of the power cord, just like this. And to make sure it stays in place nice and tight, I'll secure it with a bit of glue. Let's give the glue a moment to dry, just to make sure everything holds together nicely. Alright, that should do it. It feels solid and secure now. Just the way we want it. Now it's time to test and see if everything is working properly, shall we? Well, look at that. It's up and running again. That's a good sign. Oh, wow. Would you look at that drill bit? It's all loose and wobbly. Let me go ahead and tighten that up real quick. We can't have it dancing around while we work, can we? Alright, that's nice and secure now. No more wobbling or shaking. That's exactly what we want. Now, let's give it a test run and drill into this piece of wood right here. Let's see how well our repair holds up in action. And just like that, we successfully fixed a broken plug and saved an entire morning of work. Here at Hack and Craft, we truly believe there's nothing you can't repair if you know the right tricks. And of course, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.